Siesie Bera Befreyen Nya Obinchu Mi Mame Yenu Obedi Sohim Yedi Chonto Beshama Einyame Eninaye Oye betu jumni jise ninaye yedi chonto beshama einyame ninaye oye betu jumni jise ninaye
Amen.
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 Okay, yeah, you're ready. Yo, okay. Abusuafo ye ma ye nyina ye ho akwa ababio. Enyimire ya sana hiem ye betoa weekend mu family life nkyerɛkyerɛ ye to aso from no enyimire no enyimire anopai na me asan ma yafunu ma ye ma. They say ye bedi ye final dessert. Enti no yesre se nyame beka ye ho na de akai. Wa ma yesua de yesua no na ye de akobo ye bra na nimse sa party be me anya akwanya se ye wo questions ye wo comment ye wo mmoa bi a ye betimi e de aba na ye da Dr. Anoase wa break time difference na nya asem ketwa by the nyamiase say one man strength to stay awake na your presentation amaye nti anuanom yense brebebre ye be koso na yakọ program said ye be ye benyambre aye de epese ye ti sa bre ye be si ye trase na ya bompaye na minim wo ma ye wo so nti se ama Vivian e wo so a ko betima bompaye amaye na ye de ahyase. Amen. And Dr. Ano ye jai echirema na menka ho no fa oson kasa nkyere ye ti ahawo
I want to thank you all, particularly the young people, because I join in and listen to your program. It was quite inspiring, because actually I'm the sponsoring elder for the youth department of my church. So when it comes to young people, I'm very passionate about whatever they do. So it's a good work that you're doing. Keep on going. Last night, I don't know whether many of you were able to join us, but I understand a few of you were not able to. So I'm going to play back some of the things that we talked about, particularly in terms of dating, courtship, and marriage, because these are areas where the young people sometimes struggle. It's just going to be a whistle sort of tour, touch on a few things, and then we'll go to today's main topic about investing in your relationship. They're all interrelated. And, you know, people can ask questions as we go along or contribute, because relationships are things that are lifelong and everybody has got their own experience to share. So I'm going to share just this with you briefly. Yeah, we did talk about dating, courtship, and marriage. And, you know, we did ask questions, why do you want to ask somebody out? You know, obviously, you're interested in that person and you want to ask them out, but you've got to be true to yourself and you got to really stick to your moral values. Don't take the person for granted and don't ask the person to do things that you're and are not really appropriate. If you ask them, be on time, no African time, as I said, or Ghana time. So be smartly dressed, guys, and well groomed. You know, if you want to leave a beard, make sure the beard is well trimmed. If you're gonna pick your lady up in the car, go nicely, pick her up. Don't honk your horn or disturb the neighbors. Don't ask your date to do things that you're not really, that might violate their moral values, and pay attention to your date. I know you young guys, you like your social media. So when you take a girl out or you ask somebody out, please put those phones down and concentrate and talk to each other, because the communication is very key, because you're trying to learn and get to know the person that you want to date. You know, so it's important that you do follow those basic etiquettes. And never flirt with another person whilst you're on a date. That's a no-no. And make sure you return your date back at the right time. Otherwise, the parents won't be happy. If you take any of my niece or nephews out, please make sure you come on time, and then you bring them back at the appointed time. Dress modestly, because modesty is always beauty. And I said, ladies, none of this, because this gives wrong impression to guys. And guys, please, no hanging bottoms or, you know, these fashions that you see floating around. None of that. Dress appropriately smart, and then go with that. Sometimes we have illusions about what love is. People think that love is a feeling that, you know, goes through your heart, or some people think even goes through your brain. But we'll look at what true love is. But when you get to know somebody and then the relationship progresses, you want to court them. And courtship is a preparation period in which a man and a woman already mutually attracted to each other become more thoroughly acquainted with each other in preparation for intended marriage. So you're courting and you're getting to know each other. And Ellen G. White has got useful passage in Adventist homepage 42. It says, examine carefully to see if your married life would be happy or inharmonious and wretched. Let a question be raised, will this union help me heavenward? So any relationship that you get into, that the person you want to marry, you got to pose that question. Is that person going to help you to go to heaven? Or that person actually will just distract you, or make you go the other way? So it's very important that you do ask that very question. And for those who are contemplating marriage, it's very important to watch every development of the character of the person, because life is a lifelong, marriage is a lifelong experience. It's not just a day that you have the wedding and it's finished, no. Once you marry, there are a lot of things, it's the process that you go through, which I will highlight. And it says the effect of marriage is both in this world and in the afterworld. And the sincere Christian will make no plans that God cannot approve. It's a Ministry of Healing, page 359. In all sincerity, every step that you take should be characterized by modesty, simplicity, and sincerity. And it goes on, it says, you gotta be careful when you're dating or you're courting someone from a different faith, because sometimes a lot of the frictions, a lot of conflicts do happen. I married a wife, she wasn't an Adventist. And I was a staunch sort of a believer in the state that I wasn't going to shift in everything that I do. But we had difficulties because when I want to take my little boys to church, she won't go to church. But eventually she knew that I was very strong in my faith, and then she got baptized in the Adventist faith, and she's now Adventist, has been an Adventist for a number of years now. So it's very difficult sometimes when you marry outside your faith, because little things like, the food you eat, the lifestyle you live, all those things do come into play. And you gotta be very careful if you treading into that. As a matter of fact, our church, does not encourage that, because no Adventist minister would officiate your sort of marriage if you do marry outside in terms of your wedding, if you go and marry outside your faith. So you've got to bear that in mind. Because, like I said, worship, Sabbath keeping, recreation, use of financial resources, training of children are all responsible components of a happy family relationship, and it's very key. Some people think that when you're married, it's all to do with the wedding. The wedding is just a day, and it's just a declaration to the public that two of you have decided to live your life, till eternity. And unfortunately, 40 to 50% of first-time marriages will end in divorce. This is true fact. And don't be preoccupied with what the person's hair looks like, or whether they have the right hair, or how the wedding will look like, because those things are just temporary. What you need to focus on is whether this person that you intend to spend your life with is going to complement you, you're going to complement them, you're going to have joint sort of vision and jointly work together, both spiritually, physically, and financially. So true love is a decision you make every day. Build on your relationship on realistic dreams, and if possible, young people do have premarital sort of counseling is very important. 1 Corinthians 13, 4-8b tells us what love is. It says love is patient, is kind, it does not envy. Love is a doing word, it's an action word, it's not just a feeling. Some people use the word lightly, but if you look deep into this scripture, it's life. Love is not resentful, it's not irritable. It does not rejoice at the wrongdoing, but rejoice with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes for all things, endures all things. Love never ends. So God's idea, instituted in the Garden of Eden as marriage, he consecrated it when he said in Genesis 2:18 that the two shall become one. And that's why a man and a woman will leave their parents, the two shall cleave, and then will go and have their own life. So a day will come when Irama will leave Elder Siama, when she meets her soulmate. And nothing that Elder Siama will say will persuade her. She will follow her heart desire. That is what God has instituted, and that is what human beings are propelled to do. So Christian marriage is a divinely sanctioned union between a man and a woman for the fulfillment of the mutual love, for mutual support, for shared happiness, and for procreation. This is what God designed in the Garden of Eden. And we are told that God created man and woman, and as a covenant, that God set up in the Garden of Eden. And the marriage date or the wedding is a public declaration, which is said before. So marriage is sacred. Husband and wife come together to reflect God's image, and true commitment is then expounded. And Christian marriage is designed to make you more like God. So we've talked about not being unequally yoked. That is when you marry outside your faith, the difficulties that you face or the challenges that you face. It doesn't mean that it cannot work. My example did work, but not everybody example will be the same. Some people, when they do venture outside their marriage, outside the church, they do go through a lot of difficulties and the challenges. So you got to bear this in mind when you're choosing a life partner. And there are stages of marriage that everyone goes through. The first stage is called passion prevail. When you see someone, you see a girl, your heart starts pumping like, you're some boat, you want to run 100 meters in almost 6.25 seconds or something like that, because you're in love. And those feelings are infatuations, really. The hormones that are flying all over. And you tend to focus on each other. You spend hours or days even on phones. You can't have enough of each other. And everything is preoccupied by what you see in front of you. And it's that physical attraction between you two. Then when you move on from that, and then you've gone to know the person you've married for maybe a year or a couple of years, and then you start noticing the little differences that get amplified. For example, you go to the toilet and you close the toilet seat, you leave it open. Your wife will be irritated about that because that's not how she was brought up. And these things become a bone of contention or conflict within the family. Maybe the husband will come from work, he will throw his shoes out and in front of the in the lounge, and things are scattered left, right, and center. You forget about things, and when you were courting or when you were in the first year in the passion prevail period, none of these things were noticeable. But as you go along, it becomes more of a challenge, more of a problem, and you move to the next stage where you start to ask yourself, what was I thinking? Did I actually do the right thing? Did I choose the right person? Maybe, I should have listened to my mom. I should have listened to my friends. He's the wrong person. It's too late, guys. You're married to that person, and it's for better, for worse. So you have to do your preparation work carefully before you enter to that stage. Then you look at the other phase where you think, oh, if the other person changes, everything will be all right. Everything is my wife's fault. Everything is my husband's fault. If he changes, then the relationship is going to be okay. So there's the blame game, like you see in Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, blaming each other. It started from there, and we are experiencing that now in our relationship. People would argue and would blame each other for every little fault that they find in the relationship. That is one of the stages of marriage. Then you move on to a more sort of a matured stage where you recognize that you're all different, and you recognize your differences, and you're in love, and therefore problems that comes up, you all think about it in a more collaborative way and find a way or compromise. Where you cannot find compromise, you agree to disagree. Relationships will always have differences, and the more you have things in common, the better. But yes, you're going to have differences, and sometimes those differences you can resolve them, sometimes you can't. But as a married couple, you move on once there's a compromise or there's an agreed position where to move on. Then the last phase where it's together at last. You spend much time together, high level of intimacy, emotional, spiritual, and physical. And these stages, as I said, all the 5 stages, they're not linear. You can move from stage 5 right up to stage 1, or from stage 1 to stage 4. It's more fluid in terms of how these stages of in marriage operates. There's also some indication of whether a marriage is going to succeed or not. And there are 4 key areas: the family background, the individual characteristics, the social context in which the person is in, and the couple's interactional process. In the family that you come in, how your parents were treating you, how you interacted with your siblings, all these things form your character, and you take these things into your relationships. The atmosphere within the family, if your dad was hitting your mom, oh, I tell you, believe you me, you're going to experience that, or either you're going to take that to your relationship, because there's a lot of body of evidence that suggests that where there is domestic violence in the family, the kids are more likely, to also carry on and whatever they've observed, because they model behavior in the family setting. Individual characteristics: some people are very temperamental. I think a Caribbean and willful. Those attitudes, their values, they will take them into their relationship. And even though we did say the opposite attracts each other, it's better when you have things more in common, so there's less area to disagree with each other. So the selection process is quite key. The social context: if you've lived in if you come from a previous marriage, or you live with parents who are divorced, or parents who are cohabitating, they're not married, just living their husband and wife, enjoying the privileges, but they're not really married. Or religious dissimilarities, as I said, you marry outside your faith. All these things do come into play when you're, in marriage situations. And then how you interact, how you communicate, how you relate to another, how you resolve conflicts. Because one of the key factors in divorce is how people or couples resolve to conflict. In terms of divorce, we know that divorce is on the increase. In US, this is 2018 statistics: 2.9 per 1,000 of the population. That's the divorce rate. In UK, it's pretty high. We said we live in the Queen's kingdom, and a lot of women have got a lot of power. And yes, divorced couples, married on an average of 12 and a half years, according to the Office of National Statistics 2018, that is in UK. So, which means I'm lucky. I've been married for nearly 23 years. So praise the Lord. Thank God that I'm still going, that we're still blessed in our marriage. And some of the key factors leading to divorce and separation. Number one is infidelity. And, when people are not faithful to their husbands and wives, they go outside the marriage because they're not having whatever within the marriage, not satisfied. So it's important that we know these key things. Lack of trust. Once you go outside the marriage, trust is broken. Financial crisis or financial situations, husband doing their own thing, wives doing their own thing. Nobody knows how each other earns. They're hiding things. Some building houses and not letting the other person know. All these things do contribute to divorce and separation. Lack of commitment. You never get them to do anything. They're always sort of selfish, doing their own thing. Or sometimes you look at the situation is, I've chosen the wrong person, or I'm married to the wrong partner, or married for the wrong reason because you wanted to come to US and stay in Texas. So when the guy came and then saw your parents, yes, you jumped to that opportunity, not knowing the guy, not knowing the woman, because that was your gateway, your route to US. So you took that gateway route to UK. So you took that opportunity. You've married for the wrong reason, and that itself can sometimes, be problematic as the relationship goes on. And another key factors: lack of sex and emotional intimacy. Sometimes we're not really connected sexually, women, more satisfied when the emotional aspect of their lives are also satisfied. It's not good enough when your actions and your attitudes say something else, and then during the evening or night you want your husband, your wife to help you out. You didn't help her out emotionally or practically. You left her to do everything, and then in the evening you want her to help you out, even though it's something that both parties know element. Men do as well, but I think it's important we do have that emotional connectivity. Communication, lack of communication, very key, very central, or inappropriate communication channels. These days you have couples, they're all sitting in the front room or in the lounge, and they all have their mobile phones and texting each other. They're not talking. When we used to sit down and talk, that seems to be disappearing. Or you have a family sitting down together on the table, on the dinner. It could be Thanksgiving Day, and then people talking to each other. You don't see that these days. They are on the table, but at the same time, they've got their mobile phone on the side, and they're communicating with others, those people who they've got on their contacts. Conflicts and poor management skills and strategies. And I talked about domestic violence, which is quite key. Alcohol and substance misuse also is a contributing factor. If you've got a husband who likes to drink, they will use alomo bitters as an excuse. I want just to whet my appetite, and then this alomo bitters is underneath the bed. And they be we trying to alcohol, but they will tell you, oh, it's only for appetite. No, advantage, just be wary. Choice of a partner, we talked about. According to many divorced women, the issues that eventually cause their divorce have been present since the beginning of their relationship. So all these issues was just there, but because they were infatuated and didn't do their homework well, these issues becomes more amplified. And I said couples may decide to stay together for a number of reasons, but these reasons will eventually not be strong enough to allow them to stay in marriage indefinitely or not separated. Some of them could be because of the children, or maybe they've invested quite a lot of money in the relationship, or the fear of what others may say, or how the church might frown on them, and therefore they continue to stay in that relationship. Lack of financial, in terms of financial crisis and argument, lack of understanding in terms of savings and spending leads to dispute. One partner may be saving, the other partner may be spending all the money, buying shoes, buying clothes, buying all those things that they will never wear. And then we have hidden agenda and dishonesty. I'll say I've had experience where I was living in a house in London, and this woman was building her own house without her husband not knowing it all. And she would send money home, and then eventually one day, the money that she spent to somebody, the person brought sort of thanks back. And when the person came, it was the husband that was at home. He said, "Oh, mama, say, what was the past? He told the husband. He said, "What?" He said, "Yes, this is what has been happening." So hidden agendas. What do you think that relationship did? It didn't work out because people were hiding. They weren't transparent. They weren't true and committed to each other in terms of financial management. Lack of sex or emotional intimacy. I've said physical, emotional sort of intimacy between two persons, and husband and woman. Yes, when you're dealing with health issues or grief or loss of friend or jobs or certain situation, yes, you can excuse yourself and say, "Look, I'm not in the mood today, fine." But please don't make this an excuse all the time. Go headache because you're not in the mood. Because having an intimate relationship, both sexually, is very important in ensuring that your relationship goes on. So for many, emotional closeness is an essential prelude to sexual intimacy. The emotional closeness is a very important prelude to sexual intimacy. So when you want to, have a sexual intimacy intercourse with your wife, you make sure you treat her well, treat her good, you know, and she will also look after you. And also lack of interest in sex is often a result of ongoing issues such as unresolved conflicts, poor communication of sexual needs. No, you got to make sure she's also satisfied. Then breach of infidelity or breach of trust. I've talked about that. Solomon, wrote these words. You can read them yourself in Songs of Solomon 6-12. Those are kind words or poetic words or of romance that King Solomon wrote down. And Proverbs 5:15-19, write it down and read it as well. It's a caution us to drink from our own system. Means that you stick to your wife of your youth. Don't go outside your lane. Stay in your lane. I know in America you have big lanes and the cars drive maybe 4, 5, 6 lanes. No, Solomon is telling you stick to just the lane that you're used to, one lane. Don't shift. It's important. And the Bible tells us there's reason for that. Because if you look at Corinthians 7:1-4, 1-40 tells us about how husbands and wives do not own their own body, that the body belongs to both. So don't deprive of each other unless you guys have agreed for a period, because this was created by God for us to enjoy and also for procreation. And when divorce and separation do happen, it does have significant impact on everyone involved, the family, the children, the church, and it's extremely stressful. I know we did talk about stress today. One of the causes of stress is when people are having relationship difficulties and are going through the divorce process. And it's very stressful in terms of it has impact on your emotional being, your physical being, and your spiritual being. And it's a chain of real events. Socially, you probably will move to another place because your parents have split and they're all gone different ways. You're gonna have to find new friends. You're gonna have to change your lifestyle. The money that is coming in is gonna go down because you're not having two families contributing to the family income. So all these things have significant impact. So you gotta think about it carefully before you even think about going to that road. It alters your family structure. And there's tension between divided loyalties, even within the church. People start to take sides, and you're forced to basically adjust to your parenting role. You have to look at who is looking after Ajwa, who is going to look after Ama, and who's going to contribute towards the maintenance. All these things are things that will come to bite you when you find yourself in that structure. And I said psychologically, emotionally, people who go through divorce have a greater propensity to develop psychiatric problems, some depression, and loneliness, and bitterness, and they go through all kinds of disappointments. And the feeling of inadequacy and abandonment can also be overwhelming. And research suggests that people who go through separation and emotional sort of destitute can actually increase their risk of psychiatric and physical disease. You can get physical condition, high blood pressure, all those things associated with divorce. Let's carry on. And emotionally, the impact on children. Children are quite confused because they are the victims of the relationship breakdown. They are the losers. And one psychiatrist, Carl Whitaker, says, when children are involved, there's so much things as a divorce. The battle over parenting, access, and custody don't end with a legal granting of a divorce. For them, they will take this into their next relationship because they are innocent bystanders, but they are the ones that are really affected. They get confused. And also children can have emotional repercussion 25 years after their parents are divorced. So it's a long-term effect. And some children will start to act up. They might develop some psychological problems, low attainment levels in schools. And these things do have effect on them because they don't have a say when parents are fighting and struggling over little things that may contribute and lead to divorce. Plenty of evidence suggests that children from divorced family are put at greater risk for a variety of emotional and behavioral problems. We've talked about that. We've said 50% of children enter adulthood as worried, angry, and self-depreciating. Both boys and girls have trouble establishing relationship, with close to 40% needing relationship therapy. So they take this even into their next relationship. So you have messed your life up in terms of your divorce and separation, and you've left that legacy onto your children who are going to try to find someone to live with, but then they will be carrying the baggage that have been left behind. So parents, please do think about these things when you're going through difficulties. Think about the impact on your children and the impact that they have to go through because of divorce. I said distress and confused children. The sons of divorce, the men of divorce or people who separated take longer to adjust and tend to become more sexually aggressive, exhibit antisocial behavior, and have more learning difficulties at school. And this is research-based. And the impact on divorce has an impact on your spiritual life. Some people stop even going to church. And then the attitude of the church towards them also changes. So it's important that as church, we support each other when people are going through these difficult times, but also as couples, you work through your problems and find solutions. And some of the solutions or some of the things is what we're going to talk about next, which will be looking at investing in your relationship. So I'm going to park there. It's a whistle stop of what we talked about yesterday. And if there's any questions here, you can pose the questions as we go along. And whilst I load the other slides, which is investment and our relationship. I'm going to share these slides. I'll send it to Elder Siama, and then he can post it to anyone who is interested. Any questions or contributions? Or we take them after the presentation?
Dr. Pacha, do one was here, entertain questions.
Okay, you can yeah, over to me whilst I'm loading the other presentation.
Okay. Abusia, Dr. Anodina was here. Na sabre, ebetimi aje questions, any comments, any idea be a dawadwene so, fasa adesua yi ho. And we don't have to say ye beka ye personal niema e wo dwam ha. But in generalized way, say maybe why ye personal ye into details and if you say this is not the platform, but so what maybe for adesua yi ho a actually no me feel say so person ni doctor na kasa kura na me feel say ye possible because ye nyina ye pemoa a beboa ye na ye wo situation bi mu actually ye adwene so a ye betimi aka ye personal niema no na samwa bi wo ho a nyame ama atimi abo anti so bi wo question na the floor is open. Oh, na me ka so de awia obusa questions nti na me ba mu no. Okay. Nti na mbusa an so. Okay.
Okay, ma mentua nti with the you've got your bits about relationships, about dating, courtship, and marriage, and adults. We also have heard about all the difficulties that come with divorce, the legacy, problems happen. Okay, yeah, sorry. Right. I got cut off. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. Someone tell me, Lydia. Oh, good, good. Right. We started by looking at Ephesians 4:31 to 32. Was it, let all bitterness, wrath, and anger, clamor, and evil speaking be put away from you. With all malice, be kind. That's the word. Be kind to one another. Tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God in Christ forgave you. And if you look at Philippians 2:1 to 4, it says, be like-minded, having the same love, doing nothing through self-ambition or conceit, looking out for one another. And in Mark 10:44 to 45, it says, whoever wishes to be first among you shall be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give himself a ransom for many. So here it's talking about 7 others, being like-minded and doing nothing that is self-ambition. Now, healthy relationship, how does it look like? Pacho, I pose the question, healthy relationship, how does it look like? Any answers at all? You can throw in anything that comes in your mind. How does it look like?
Good communication.
Communication, yes.
Care for each other.
Help for each other, yes.
Transparency.
Pastor Mantio.
Transparency.
Transparency, very key, yes. But also, come on.
Say the obvious one. Love each other.
Love each other, yes, that's the obvious one. Okay?
Learning from each other.
Learning from each other.
Less criticism.
Less criticisms. That's very important, very true.
Encourage each other.
Encourage each other, support each other. Very good. One more.
Forgiveness. Accept your husband or your wife as they are.
Accept your husband or your wife as they are. If they're short, if they're tall, if they are big, if they are muscular woman or whatever, that's how you marry them. You accept them the way they are.
Sometimes you need to compromise.
Sometimes you need to compromise. Most often, sometimes, when I don't want the argument, I say you won, and then accept whatever is there. But if I think I'm right and it's going to create a lot of argument, you find a way of communicating that. But you can also agree to disagree. Thank you, Pastor.
No
right.
outside, no outside interference.
No outside interference. You can see these keywords: trust, love, working together, honesty, allowing freedom, no power struggle, no keeping scores. Oh, sometimes we do keep scores. Investing time and energy, allowing individuality, responsibility, working through problems, respect, communication, and trust. It's more cyclical. I'm going to pick these things up and then we go through it and look at strategies that we can do to enable us to have a positive relationship with our spouses, with our friends, with our colleagues, with our church brothers and sisters. It's a relationship with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship you have. Does that make sense? Invest in the relationship you have with yourself. There's a saying, Elder Siama, will say, "Quatrekwa, so man to ma, complete it for me." Quatrekwa, so man to ma, I say, "TNY, Nidin." Yes, that is it. So, if you're going to love someone, and you're going to spend time with that person, and you don't really love yourself, how are you going to love that person? So even the scripture says, love your neighbor as yourself. If you don't love yourself, how are you going to love somebody? So it's important that you do spend time and invest time to love yourself. So self-care is very important. It's about taking time in terms of your general well-being. The relationship you have with yourself is crucial to your own well-being and also to creating healthy and happy relationship with others. Being kind to yourself is one of the best things you can do for yourself. There are some people, they're always criticizing themselves. They always have a negative view of themselves, and that is not good. And self-care can look different things for different people. For some people, it might be time to rest each week. For others, it may be going to the gym or going out for a walk, enjoying nature. Self-care could be, just walking in the neighborhood, seeing or speaking to friends regularly. Each person is different, but you need time for yourself in a relationship. So investing in your time, the research suggests maybe 10, 15, 30 minutes each day, doing something that uplifts you, uplifts your mood. do something to wind down at the end of each day and take a few minutes each day to appreciate yourself, because God created you in his own image. When your inner circles or inner critics or outer critics find faults, try and find truth and exceptions to what is being said. So you need to look after yourself. It's very important. Also invest in others. In Galatians 5:13 and 6, it says, serve one another as Jesus, our Savior, came to serve. The only one among you, he said, who will be really happy are those who will have sought and found how to serve. This was Albert Schweitzer, who is a theologian and physician. So invest in your relationship, those key things that came up. I'm going to look at each one of them as we go along. Respect and trust. The following traits are often described as being present in any healthy relationship. Both people treat each other with respect. That means how you talk to your partner, how you support them, don't belittling them or devaluing them. You got to treat them with respect. So both people protect and value the relationship, make it a priority. For example, they invest time in the relationship. Whilst you're spending time to look after yourself, instead of self-care, you also need to set time for the family. Trusting each other, I said no hidden secrets. This is a common thing in the Ghanaian community. And I've seen so many instances where the left is doing something and then the right doesn't know about. And when there's no transparency, it's a source of conflict, because whatever is hidden will come out one day. So it's better be transparent at the very beginning so people know where you stand, and then you can work along those lines. Listen to each other and respect each other's views. Yes, you might have different views, but you got to be able to listen to those views. You're not always right. The husband is not always right. One of the things which I learned quickly when I had my children, I said, because Auntie Mary will bear me out. I never heard my mom or my dad actually say, I'm sorry, man, you're joking. He's always right. I never heard him say sorry, let alone his children, telling sorry to his children. One time I did something and my oldest son, he said, Dad, you're wrong. I said, no, I'm not. And, we're arguing and I knew I was wrong. But then I was just, being intransigent, being the Ashanti man, I'm not going to admit my fault. Eventually I realized, no, this is not going away. I said, son, I'm sorry. I know I'm wrong. For a Ashanti man, a man to say sorry to his son, never heard of. But I had to, because I knew what I was doing was wrong. And in a relationship, you have to, because when you're wrong, say you're wrong, and I'm sorry. Those
Be thou my
vision, O Lord of my heart. Now be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best abide day or by night. Waking or sleeping, thy presence my light. Be thou my wisdom, be thou my true word. I ever with thee, thou with me, Lord. Thou my great Father, thy true Son. Thou in me dwelling, and I with thee one. Riches I heed not, no man's empty praise. Thou mine inheritance, now and always. Thou and thou only first in my heart. High King of heaven, my treasure thou art. High King of heaven, when victory's won, may I read heaven's joys, oh bright have sun. Out of mine own heart, whatever befall, still be my vision, oh ruler of all. Amen.
Yabompire. Our Father in heaven, we thank you for to ensure this program does not go according to your plan. But Father, we know that you are in control. And so we will persevere. We will continue in your name, asking that you will guard each and every mind that is on the line this afternoon. That as they listen, that their mind will be stayed on you, that they will be drawn to you, and that whatever the devil is planning and is trying to do in disturbing this program, that Father, you will build a hedge around our dear doctor so that he may be able to present the word that he has or you've given to him this evening. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Are we back on now?
Yes, Doc.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Right. Let's continue. It says, invest in your relationship. Speak openly to one another about your thoughts and feelings. Both people feel supported to do things that they like, and the relationship is nurturing. Be honest with one another. And there's no abuse in terms of physical, verbal, and emotional. Sometimes we do a lot of the emotional bits and silent treatment. Our ladies, sometimes when you, have issues with your husbands, instead of talking through these issues, and there's this silent treatment, don't talk to each other. A colleague of mine, you use the term when you're asking how are things at home. He said, "Oh, yes, which means that he's having difficulties with the wife. You know, you can see the action going on, but they're not on speaking terms. You know, the silent treatment is something that you got to watch out for, or ignoring each other. So both people are able to exert boundaries in their relationship and needs to allow individuality. Yes, you are different people. Yes, the two shall become one, but you are all individuals. You come from different relationships in terms of how you were brought up. So sometimes you need to allow individuality in that relationship so that it's not really suffocating. Active listening, you've got to demonstrate active listening. And that means you have to be present. And you know, when you're talking to your partner, your spouse, or your friend, give them undivided attention. Don't have your phone in one hand, you're talking to them, and then your hands is on the texting or doing something else. When you're on the table together having family meals, or you take a friend out, make sure you're communicating with each other. Be present at that moment, you know, and be careful of social media. Active listening to others and what they're saying in a non-judgmental way, and concentrate on their needs in that moment. Don't have preconceived ideas. Let them say what they want to say and listen to them. And also listen to the emotions behind it, behind the words. And also you got to be given the opportunity to be listened to. Share how you're feeling honestly, and allow yourself to be listened and feel supported. So active listening is a conscious thing that you do. It doesn't come naturally. You got to practice at it. And communications, we are told that through research, women normally speak 20,000 words per day. Men is 7,000 per day. So if your wife goes to work and she's only spoken about 10,000 words, remember that when she comes home, she needs to give you the 10,000 left. Because if she doesn't give you the 10,000 left, you're not going to have a peace of mind. And, you know, so you make sure she has time, you give her time for her to communicate, time for her to express, time for her to say things that are bothering her. And you also need to have the opportunity to be able to say things that you think are bothering you on your mind. What is useful in my relationship is my wife work in the same sort of field. So when I come home, or when she comes home, and there are things that are bothering her or myself, we discuss. So we're able to have a channel of, in a ways of offloading some things that are on our chest, which is quite good. So if you don't let the women speak, then it will come out some other way. Working through problems, speak to the person concerned first and try to resolve the issue. This is Jesus' model of conflict management, and I want everyone to go and read it. It's Matthew 18, verse 15 to 20. Matthew 18, verse 15 to 20. If you follow those steps, you always will get things right. But sometimes people want to jump the model. What Jesus says, when someone wrongs you or you've done something against somebody, you go to that person first. You approach that person. You try and resolve that person first. And if it's not resolved, then you bring a second person in. But sometimes we don't do that. When somebody wrongs us, the first person to hear about it is either another person in the church or another friend. You haven't even spoken to them about the issue, but yet you've gone around to speak to somebody about it. And that is not the best way to resolve issues of conflict. So in your relationship, when you have an issue with your wife, speak to your wife. Don't go and call your in-laws. Don't go and call your siblings, your brothers or your sisters, and complain about what your husband is doing to you or what your wife is doing to you. No, deal with it in your own house. Deal with it first. When you're struggling and then you cannot cope with it, then it goes to the next phase, which is go and bring a third person in, a respectable person in to try and deal with it. This is Jesus' model, and it's a problem-solving approach, which is quite effective in dealing with conflict. You got to work together, be honest and transparent, no hidden secrets or surprises in your finances. And this is a key issue in Adventist homes. People doing projects without having joint projects. They want to build a house for their mom. You sit down with their mom, and sit down with I'm away. Then the wife is left in a behind. That way, I see the then the husband is left behind. You need to have joint projects together. You need to have family goals. What are the goals of the family? Not individual goals, but jointly, what does the family goals look like? Invest time and energy. Give time. Put more time aside to connect with your family, your friends, and your relatives. Spend quality time with your partner, your children, and close friends. Reduce time spent on social media. I'm going to hammer this home. We seem to spend quite a lot of time on our social media, ones as well. You know, particularly when they're not. They are under the duvet or the cover of the cloth or whatever, texting and then doing all kinds of stuff underneath the cover. So what I've instituted in my sort of home is particularly with my step-grandson who's 13, he doesn't go to the bedroom with his phone. The phone, I have a box in my bedroom. He drops the phone in the box before he goes to bed so that we know that he's sleeping when he goes to bed, because we caught him several times, you know, in bed, not asleep, using the phone. So we spend quite a lot of time on social media. It's not only the young ones, the adults as well. WhatsApp, you know, all those media, they're good in a way, but they can also be very sort of time consuming and distract us from communicating with each other, using the natural ways of communicating. And take family holidays, please. When they give you annual leave for holidays, go take the family out. Don't go and do double time because you want money to build a house in Ghana. The house in Ghana, you'll be dead and gone and you will sleep in it. Take the family out, day trips, excursions, all those things are very important. Invest quality time. I think a couple of years ago, we came to Florida and spent some time in Florida and then went to Jamaica as well. And that was the best time I've had because for a whole month, 2 weeks in Florida, 2 weeks in Jamaica was the best. Even though I go to Ghana regularly, when you go to Ghana, that's not holiday. You go to see family and you know, you spend time doing this and following this through or doing some projects. Go somewhere quiet, somewhere peaceful with the family and enjoy the bit of time that you got with each other. Work-life balance is important that you balance your work, you know, your family life. It's also important as elders and pastors, we invest time with our family because sometimes we can be overburdened with the work of God to the extent that we neglect our own physical well-being, our own sort of family life. And that is where the devil then sets in because family difficulties and relationship among elders and pastors are on the rise because of some of these issues in terms of work-life balance. So there is a lot of body of evidence to suggest that when you have a good work-life balance, it enhances your health. People with better life balance are happier and more emotionally stable. And workaholics have poorer health outcomes and experience more health. People that work 24/7. I know someone who, was working 24/7. He wouldn't even rent a room for himself. He bought a car and he was sleeping in the car. So Ghanaian was sleeping in the car. And in the morning, he would go to McDonald's and brush his teeth and buy his food and everything, and he'd go to work because he was building a big mansion in Ghana. He did all that. And then eventually what happens, dead and gone. And somebody came in to enjoy it with a wife that he left behind. Please spend time with your family. Enjoy the little bit that you've got, because time is precious and life is very short. I said work-life balance, you need good sleep. So when they said you need 7-8 hours sleep, please do sleep. Don't work 24 hours from one job to another. You're killing yourself. Give yourself some realization time, me time, in terms of the self-care, because it will strengthen your immune system when you have good sleep and good rest, and it will improve your mental and emotional well-being. And to those of you who are nurses and work at night, you can see that when you haven't had enough sleep, you become very irritable. And it also affects your memory because you become very forgetful because you haven't had enough sleep. So it's good to have good sleep, good rest to reduce irritability so that you can have good positive outcome in terms of how you relate to others. Supportive and social network is very key. Friends, family, church people, a caring church. When I say a caring church, a church that is supportive. When you're going through difficulties in COVID time, a church that will look out for those people who are not working and trying to support them. That is a caring church. A church that will recognize that there are some people within the community that are vulnerable and that needs support. You need that sort of social community around you to be able to enhance your connectivity and also the positive element of your life. You also need to practice forgiveness. Forgiveness is key. This morning I was quite thrilled when our sister who was doing stress did say something about laughter. Yes, laughter is a key because when you laugh, it releases the good hormones called endorphins in your body, and it actually enables you to be attracted to other people. I remember in secondary school, I went to a mid school first before I went to proper college. And there was this guy, he was, excuse me if I have to be a bit, he wasn't good looking at all. But he had a very good sense of humor. He could make you laugh every day. This guy was actually pulling the best girls in the school. Why? Because he was making people laugh. Not knowing that when people laugh, in terms of physically, there's these good hormones called endorphins that are released, and it attracts you to others. And it is known that laughter actually extends your life. It has impact on longevity. And this is what some Norwegian researchers did. So it's good to laugh. So when you come to church, no, you gotta laugh. You gotta make sure that you have a positive outlook. Why do you think the comedians are one of the best paid people in the industry? Why? Have you sat down to think about it? I didn't hear over Ghana, Super Odini, all those people who make people laugh. I didn't see, they seem to be well paid, Mr. Bean and the rest, because they have the ingredient to be able to make people laugh and they get attracted to people. So laughter is quite key. And when you are socially isolated, when you live alone, and you're 3 times more likely to die early. It's a good research. And people with many positive social contacts had the lowest mortality rate. This was a research by Beckman in 1979. And also when they look out for seniors, you need to make sure for those of us who are elderly in our church, in our social community, a lot of them experience social isolation and loneliness due to maybe a loss of friends or family or mobility of income. We need to look out for those people and support them. Relationship, you know, when you have a very supportive relationship, you have your immune system improves. And also we know that the elderly, they did a bit of research to find out that when the elderly are exposed to more social contacts, their immune systems or the natural killer cells increases, and they're able to fight infections because they have more social contact. Why is it that a lot of the elderly were dying during COVID time? And it's a time when also instead of having exposure to their families, the families don't have no contact with them. They are cooped inside, no vitamin D, and this predisposes them to the virus and make them more weaker when attacked by the coronavirus. So it's important in terms of people contact. It's key in terms of our immune system. How do we manage our conflict? I've talked about Jesus' way. You've got to deal with the situation privately. And if it doesn't work, use others to help. If it doesn't work, use church elders, pastors, etc. Seek restoration of the offender and your relationship with the person. Remember, Jesus promised, when 2 or 3 people are gathered in my name, I will be with them. Conflicts does have negative effects on the immune system. When one is in conflict with a spouse or companion, the immune system is less effective. All the anger, all the sort of words that are coming out, those words have lasting impact and effect on your relationship, on your children, and it also affects you in terms of your own immune system. Now, he said, it's not good. Conflict is something that you need to manage it in your relationship. I know someone said in the afternoon when we were talking about stress, that stress has got a positive element. Yes, it has. When it's prolonged, it can create a lot of psychological problems, a lot of physical problems. The same thing goes with the anger. Yes, anger is a natural human reaction, but when it's sustained over a period of time, it has negative effect on the blood pressure. It affects your thoughts, your moods, and physically. So you got to watch out. So when couples are in disagreement, make sure you settle your differences before you go to bed. The Bible even cautions us. We also need to be mindful of some of the harmful relationships that may exist. For example, there might be domestic violence. There be an idea where you sat, no boy, so who are there now, Bruno? You say, it's not only the women, the men beating the women, but the women as well beating the men. Obano e jata no tifie. We are no yin sapo. Aga when what to me. We are no afraid police amount. We afraid police amount a da with him. So it's not only one-sided, it's both ways. But domestic violence is a killer. It has impact on the children. As a matter of fact, in UK, in any family where there are domestic violence issues, if you don't take care, social services will come and take the children away, because they know that if you beat your wife, you're more likely to beat your children as well. says, although domestic violence is more common among men, among women, men also can experience, which is what I talked about. These toxic relationships are defined by an unhealthy dynamics that two people are participating in. It's important to remember that harmful relations are not just limited to our romantic partnership, but a person can have a damaging relationship with a friend, a co-worker, a family worker, an in-laws, or church member, no new be a 3 months or din, or nini animal 3 months or in-laws, a 3 months. All these relationships can be harmful. So we got to be mindful and acknowledge what these are and try and work our way to manage those toxic relationships. What are some of the signs? It says you don't feel good enough. Sometimes in a relationship, you might feel that way. You don't feel like nothing you do is right, and that they are constantly trying to prove your worth. You're constantly seeking the other person's validation. In a relationship, sometimes you see that it's often the woman trying to please their husband, and sometimes whatever they do is never good enough. Or it could be the other way. You got to watch out for those signs. Those relationships are toxic, and you got to do something about it. Or you can't be yourself. You feel you have to walk on eggshell and monitor everything that you say. We'll hit back, we'll say things, words have harmful effect, and it's very hurtful. So you're in a relationship, but you're sitting or walking on eggshells, it says. You don't feel the need to think twice before you speak, as certain topics are off limits. The house finances, you say, when I manage finances are managing a year. And so for can't not quite to and I say, I create grace in a Sikani in a corner. One a family, you woman, not in a tontuman in Pabua, who can't not quite to you don't say it. So these things will be there eating you in your relationship. You're afraid to bring things up because you are not sure how the other person will react. The other person puts you down. I did be able to put you down. You never say anything that is of good worth. You feel that you are the problem. Maybe if we looked at the stages of marriage, it goes to somewhere where the one partner will think that the problem, is the other person's, and this can be very toxic. And then you can see that you start to withdraw from participating in activities or seeing people in your life or things that you enjoy. These are some of the signs and symptoms of any toxic relation. It continues. Some negative relations can be repaired. Some of these can be repaired, but both people in the relationship need to be committed to working on it. It takes two to tango. So Bako MP say about working through the relationship now. If you are in a toxic relationship and you both agree to work to change this dynamic, it can be turned around. However, it may also be useful to seek additional support from a professional to help work out a dysfunctional or harmful relationship pattern. So, who said you're going through these difficulties? Sometimes, dealing with it alone is not enough. You need professional help. You got to see a therapist. I know Ghanaians, we don't like doing that. But sometimes when you sit down and talk to a professional who is independent, who can point you or look at, help enable you to look at things in a different light, it helps in building a healthy relationship. And you got to learn or practice forgiveness and learn to say sorry. Like I said, Ghanaian parents, I own up, very difficult to say sorry to my children or to my wife But now I've learned, if I want to move on, have a healthy relationship, when I'm wrong, put my hand up. I'm sorry, darling. I'm sorry, guys. I should have done it this way. It makes you more of a man to actually say sorry. If you're not saying sorry to your children or sorry to your wife, that doesn't mean that you're weak. It means that you're strong. You're actually admitting your fault and doing something about it. Do not keep scores. I know our ladies or some of our guys do it. They have a reciprocity or some computer mind where they put all those old scores, they keep everything there. So when you've done something, they're going to take it out. And I know now. Okay, I said 2 years ago, and then they bring these things up. Try and empty that data bank, I call it, of old scores. Empty it out. Don't bring it out. Because once you bring these things up, you actually moving backwards. You want to move forward. Learn to forgive and move on. And Dr. King will say, forgiveness is not an occasional act, it's a permanent attitude. You must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. He who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power to love. And the Bible tells us in Romans 12:18, it says, as much as it depends on you, live peaceably with one another. As much as it depends on you, live peaceably with one another. And there are benefits in forgiveness. So we are doing us all the channel when we're free, both emotional benefits. I was sick. This psychologist, health promotional will say, carrying a load of bitterness and anger at how unfairly you treated is very toxic. You are taking poison into your own system. Nelson Mandela cry put in this way, or say, when friends say, "Obi your idea," let's say you carry on the bitterness now. Let me be a show more. It is so one poison. Now we hope to say poison our no. Nipa no why you from so no, one no any from the poison. Do you understand what he's trying to say? When you are harboring bitterness, it's like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. That's how toxic bitterness is. So you need to learn to let go. It's important to forgive. Without forgiveness, there's no salvation. And without forgiveness, there's not good health in your relationship. And we know that there are benefits associated with forgiveness. You lower your blood pressure. So when you'll be, sorry, let's say maybe I know I'll be being a sure. Now you might then I say I come about penny. Now blood pressure and I'm so go across when I saw now with dodging. Why? Because there's differences you haven't settled with that person, either in your church, either in school, either in your workplace, and your blood pressure is all over the place. You got to be able to settle these differences and move on and forgive one another, because it does have an impact on you physically in terms of your blood pressure and also your immune system. And also, when you're able to forgive, you're able to reduce your anger, bitterness, resentment, and to reduce the depression and all the negative emotions that are associated with bitterness. We know that forgiveness brings healing, and carrying bitterness affects one's health negatively. And Romans 12, as I said, do all we can to forgive those who have hurt us in any way. And I'll move on to almost getting there. Invest in your sexual intimacy. Aware for Misremo. Ahanu hiapa. You for more and don't practice it. You practice it when you're married. When the pastor is giving you a license to do it. It's a lack of sex or emotional intimacy. So physical and emotional intimacy between two people. If one person is dealing with health issue or grief over loss of friend, a job, or other health challenges, then the partner must work hard not to take it personally if the spouse withdraws for a time. But we have told that we shouldn't really make sure this become like a norm. When it becomes a norm, then it can create undesired consequences. And we need to make sure we place God at the center of our relationship. Make sure that we ask God in everything that we do, from the beginning, when we're about to enter in any relationship, whilst we're in a relationship, whilst we're going through those difficulties, and even at the end when things don't work out, we still need to place God's trust in everything that we do. Thank you. I've ended the presentation, and there'll be time for questions or contributions before I ask Elder Isiam to pray at the end. To Manusi.
Yo, Dr. Yadawasi Abusiafuo Sabre or the Nanuasi. Questions, comments. Any more bia ye beti me diaba na yabisa. Na wanya kwanya to me ababa mumo at abuaye. Excuse me. The floor is open.
More question or chat to me.
Okay, question is how do we bridge the gap between parents and children when it comes to choosing a partner? How do we bridge the gap between parents and children when it comes to choosing a partner? Question, no.
All right, this is a very interesting question. And some people approach it differently. And if you look at our traditional way, you could have a situation where people could suggest, or we could look through a family and say, oh, we've seen this person who is of a good character, and then we're trying to introduce you into that family circles. There's the approach. There's also the approach where you leave young people to make a decision for themselves, because the young ones that are brought up in Europe, in the Western world, these days, if you go and bring someone and say, oh, I found someone, could you marry them? They'll throw that person right in your face. Because my children tells me that look, Daddy, but at the end of the day, I have to make that choice. So I think we have to sit down with our children. We need to talk to them, use our own experiences so that they know where you're coming from. But I don't think we should really force them or try and marry for them. Because when things go wrong, you are the person that they're going to blame. When they reach their adulthood and they're making that decision, the preparation work which we talked about, help them to go through that preparatory work. Whatever they brought to date, encourage them to introduce that person to you, take an interest in the person, talk to them, find about their family background, support your child in that decision-making process, but at the end of the day, help them to make an effective decision. And as I said, Sister White said, every decision that they take in terms of having a life partner should be based on whether that person will help them in their journey to heaven. That should be the key, and support them in making that decision. But I think at the end of the day, they will make their own choice, particularly the young ones that are born here. They've got their own minds.
No.
She's laughing.
Doc made us say, but I think the other part.
I'm not putting on your spot, yeah.
Doc,
any questions?
Yes, Doc. In addition to that, how do we get the parents to also kind of look at things from the eyes of the children? Because most of the time, we come with our experiences from a different culture and country. How do we also look at it from the kids' perspective nowadays and come to their level?
Okay. All right. I want the youth to actually answer that. How do you want your parents to look at your point of view in terms of how you see things. Sometimes it's better hearing from them than from an adult. How would you, the young ones on the forum, I want you to take the mantle and answer this particular question. Speak to your parents now. Let them listen to you. Don't be shy. Yeah.
I'll go ahead and say that just simply to communicate. Obviously, when we say communication, it's on the end of the person communicating and the other person receiving. So it isn't just only on, sometimes also the youth and young adults, they tend to misunderstand the fact that if they're going to tell their parents to understand them or talk to them, that they're just going to talk and they have to hear everything that they say. And whatever the parent says, they also cannot hear it either. But it has to be a two-way street, open communication, both being completely vulnerable, transparent, where the parent speaks about what they observe, because at the end of the day, young adults, they crave honesty. The ones that don't crave honesty, you can kind of measure their maturity, but those who want better in their lives actually do prefer honesty and sayambaya from their parents. So honestly, to open that channel of communication between parents, I know I can say for my own mother, she will ask questions, plenty of questions. So sometimes some parents, they like to wash their hands and act like, oh, well, my child will figure it out because I've taught them well. So I'm just going to step away from it and watch them make their decision. But she is somebody who's very adamant, even my father as well, very adamant about asking questions, being in your business, also respecting your privacy, even if you have none, according to her, but does it in a way where she's still advising you and let you know your responsibility and what she can do. So it's a thing on both sides. I can't necessarily say it's just up to the parents to listen to the children and up to the children to just, not listen to the parents, but it still is a responsibility between both.
And to pick,
carry on.
Yes, to piggyback on what Arama is saying as well, I believe like Arama said, it's a two-way street, and it's something that starts early. I believe as a parent, if you wait for your child to get to the age whereby they're now getting married, for you to come and express to them that, you'd prefer they marry this kind of person, this kind of person, this kind of person. I think at that point, they've already set in their ways of what they like, their interests, their dislikes, and all that. And it's kind of hard to change that. But so it started early at least, and you're getting to know your child's personality. Maybe you see somebody you think said, maybe that person might be good for my child. You know your child's personality. You even know the best way to approach your child with it. Because sometimes, and yes, maybe the child is not interested in that other person or not interested in what the parent is saying. Sometimes it's the approach. Like me, for example, I'm the type that if you bring somebody to me just like that, I might say I'm not interested. You have to find a good way to convince me about it. Maybe give me time to process it, give me time to think about it. Let me understand that it's my choice at the end of the day. But Obana say like it's a forced thing. Bia said, talk to the person, get to know them, and you guys are getting married tomorrow. That's one, there'll be some resistance. But if you open the dialogue, it said like Adrian, like we are talking about it, we are engaging about it. What do you think about it? And you allow your child to believe that they have some type of input, and I said they have some type of, decision or part in the decision. I believe that they'll be much more open. And with the youth, and it's not just the parents' job to open that gate. Sometimes our parents don't know how to approach us about certain things. There's certain things too we can also approach them about it first and open that gate. At first, my mom always talks about it. At first, like she had her and my dad had to quickly learn that they're not in Ghana. So the way that they raise us will not be the same way that maybe a parent in Ghana might raise their child. Here is quite different. So they had to learn that their parenting skills and things know how to change based on the environment that we are now in. And so if you're a parent, especially for the parents whose children are young right now, be open to the fact that your child is not being raised in Ghana. Your child is being raised in an environment whereby so many different things are influencing them. So like your child, you want your child to get to a certain point like you have that kind of relationship with them, or they will get to a point out they are good for themselves and not. You have to be open to understand them, the culture they are in, and then inputting your culture as well so that they understand both sides and not just one side over the other. So that's what I would say in terms of trying to find a way to bridge that gap.
Oh, well said, well said. Well, thank you. That contribution was on point. Same as the one down from Rama. Really, really good. I think the key is actually communication. Spending time. If you look at some of the slides, said invest time in your relationship. When you spend time with your children from the very onset, they're very more open. They're able to tell you things. You know, you get to know things from the beginning. Don't just wait till when they are, you know, they are in the you know, adulthood and they're about to marry, and then you want to spend time with them. But you need to make sure you are spending good quality time. And also, like, communication is a two-way thing, as Rama said. One has to be very keen to listen and to appreciate one's point of view. You know, we are not parents, we are not in Ghana, because my children always tell me that he always tells us about these Ghana stories, but we are not in Ghana, we're in UK. And, you know, you got to look at that perspective. But in all things, just encourage them, use the scripture, use your experience to guide them in making those lifelong decisions, because at the end of the day, they would have to live with that sort of consequences or the impact of whatever decision that they take. It's going to affect you as well, because you will be an in-law, but guide them and support them in that process. Any questions? Any more questions or contributions?
Dr. Mpacho, may I question? Yeah, Benani. My question is, may the mama ulma the ebe example. At a tea, I may fancy papa na de mama ne fame. They be I was me man tea. Me patcho motemenka.
A talk, Mary.
Was a me man in tea, metna ho. Na wo suguni yam, no suguni yam, na chese wo fall how mu. Enti me pesa me bisa enra wade suam no ma ye hunu say our regya ne ba e affecting kwala no, which is true. Enu ntino na point ben say dura esese oba ne ka say whether me man nti or not no, me se samene ma na makọ. Me example baby e betimi aba say bi kura na be ma no kura no otene ne nsa de bro oba no. Nanti because of nkula no future ntino yentna sesa na enkoso sa ana say yemo ye ho adwa baabi. My question no. Say the man ye excuse me menti.
Okay, it's a very interesting and a good question. Anyone who is willing to answer that, then I will chip in.
Kakra me person me can was a question no. A very common, especially say woman and a victim. A very, 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 very serious situation. Now me feel say work can when somebody be a work can. There are tools who more down the years no. No such situation American. Ye num ye breso ne ye maame num breso no na sa kwanya we ni ho. Nti ye tena mu sa. Sese susu no eniama sesa kakra fine. Said the memre da sori no kra na niema bi koso no. Me fini nchen ne be wura mu. They say nti ase bi asesa eye for the better for marriages. The metini aka in this situation no. Say ya dear ma men especially ne life is in danger there. Say yadia anhwe yi a ewuo betimi abom, serious damage betimi aba. Enti bibi saa no me fi say ya asafo yi mu ana abusua no kra there must be a way be a separation. Kosi say nipa kro ya abuser no maybe they will agree to get some help. We be akakayen. Ebi ne counseling. Ebi ne outside people to say asori mpanyimfo asofo namfo aye wonchen. Ebi wo ho a na enye physically abuse. The American ebe emotional, which is sometimes even worse than physical abuse, because it can lead to all kinds of illness. And ye drew point to be a ebi wo ha victim no kra no, ebi wo ha wonye ni babia wo a wo tinchen no, you are seeing say mami wafon mami ebitimi fa mo boda minim situation bi esi Ghana mami no boda opantoma guye because the papa no de ye no wo awade me aso no wo personal experience if he said me mami say nya tremendous effect e won health so when nyina nchen wo ye intimi fi say drew sa point yi bia no bie na no ka e kire wo bia. We need to help to intervene when the wife is in danger, when the victim is in danger. He or she needs to be removed from environment, said the beya enquire yehunu yanka na advertise mami ya wo boardam any woman ebi ewu me nya kwan me wo ye nyina ye experience me ntimi nkeka ebi wo ha ye very very dangerous. Enti feel say a point is ano asafo no eni ni pa atwa ho ahia no e wo se ye careful na yen kanchre victim ne say, especially the woman ne say wo de anya hwe tenamu na they are suffering and also so no enye e wo say ye boa to help say the lead to ade a ye nyina ye be ya asefam na ye nu ye ho kakra me wo kan no.
I mean, in fact, in UK, even the Seventh-day Adventists, we have got something called a safeguarding policy. Yeah, safeguarding policy highlights all the issues in terms of abuse. Domestic violence is one of them. Now, policy, as a result of the government overarching safeguarding policy, because only say family be domestic violence, papa no ebo mama no, and mama no ebo papa no. More likely say the children are the ones that are going to suffer. Until churches need also drop this. It's very important, it's very critical, say, when there are issues to do with domestic violence, and if it's known within the church circles now, the church leadership needs to deal with it. We cannot hide behind the scene, say, where they ask for back, because the person's life could be at stake. So it's important. There are policies there. There are practical help as well. So be able through those difficulties. You can seek professional help to try and solve these issues. And if eventually things are not working out, there are opportunities, for example, in UK where they might help, you might go to refuge homes, or for a period until, say, or those issues. But no facilities. Yes, already stayed together. She's 85, 86. My dad is dead and gone. She's still there. And I think she provided a good model, in terms of how she looked after us, even though she was having all these difficulties in that relationship. So sometimes it can work out, but where your life is at stake, do not take risk. But will be the question there, but say, how do we stop church members picking sides in the marital conflicts rather than staying neutral and helping them resolve the issues at hand. Pacho Mati. I will ask either the elders or any of the pastoral team, how do we ensure that we don't take sides? Obani okunu ene ekon ewa asafunu yeni. Na so ne ejina bani nchen anase ejina bema nchen. Now you're taking sides because that is common. Now if a relationship no cry and cause you a crime then you make my faso. Actually I prevented that and I say I minimizing that. Say by a relationship a bit grow.
Okay, Bacho mebem. Nukremuni.
Yes, sir.
We cannot stop. The individuals themselves have to stop doing that. Ankure woman. Na mema memfa we nya hweso ma mo ansa. Na afi ye hunu se emwa. Ache kakra. Maami bi be report to ne kunu. Emaame. Na oka nasem ne wie ye no ano. Kyerɛ sɛ nka minya papa no ananka meto no twɛde at that time. Na menya nyine papa wo nyamesom mu. Kosi sɛ mikotie papa no nso ano asɛm. Ɛne afei na maame no mum na ɛsɛ sɛ yɛ boro no. Na maame no afei ya mekɔ ndɛ wo na wayɛ sɛ maame no sɛ boa me na mempa me kunu kyɛw. Na yɛ dɛ na ba ya a ɔbɛka kyerɛ me sɛ ya nka ma me buafuo. Nti adɔfo nom ebere bia asɛm bi besie yɛnya yɛyɛ Kristofo amapa no. Ne ɛsɛ sɛ yɛyɔ ne sɛ yɛnyina obi akyi so ɔyɛ madamfo so wɔnyɛ madamfo so wɔyɛ minua so wɔnyɛ minua na mmom yɛde yie bɛtɔ yie ɛdeɛ ne haw no a ɛkɔ so no kwan bɛn ɛne yɛbɛfa so a yɛbɛtumi ayi haw no afiri hɔ sene sɛ mete asɛm no a na makɔgyina baako akyi sɛ yɛ dɛ na megyina baako akyi na meko tia baako no ɛmmoa yɛn na mmom yɛyɛ ankasa suban mu nti yɛyɛ a yɛyɛ saa na menka o sɛ yɛ asafo panimfo sɛ yɛ asɔfo sɛ yɛ nnamfo ma yɛ nyina awarefoɔ no mu baako bi yɛ akyi ma yɛ mmoa ma awadeɛ ngu san sɛ yɛ mu bebree wɔ hɔ a yɛfotu a yɛde maa deɛ yɛgyina n'akyi no ɛna ma awadeɛ no guiɛ na nka awadeɛ no bɛtumi ayɛ yie mede bɛsia na obi so aka bi meda mo ase.
Kings ni akra me de bɛka ho ni sɛ dodo a ya na a time ebo charge sɛ obi ba mu no ɔbɛtai ba ko akyi no sɛnea da sia America no asɔre pani ana ɔsɔfo bia ɛde kromini onim de no enko tai ba ko akyi entai ba ko na ya na awarefo no anu a wo mu nsɛm aba no ya na ofiri sɛ nasɛm ɔde kyɛn ɔbɛma no ɔba no firi sɛ nasɛm ɔde kyɛn kunu eni so bɛka bia no so far as say one can say we yiri difo ana okun difo no mu firi asɛm no kɔ ya de ordinary one sɛ obae no o kama we ebi so ana asɛm na enye de ɛna ɛsɛ ɔka asɛm no sɛ ne sitie just by the fact to say you spoke the truth and put round holes in round peg no ɛkro no a wonye niman yie no na wɔde nam sɛ obae no obotaa ne yirachi ana ba ota ne kunochi na ansɛm ho sei no enye se bia aware semu ye ka aka se una di bem una di fo eni hia the most important thing is to bring aware for community together na ware ani betimi agina eni ne se ekunu wo hwehwe se ne obedi asɛm no bɛka kyerɛ wo se oyiri di fo na una di bem ana se okunu di fo una di bem ne ama won saso no that is not what we are looking for. Ni hina nyina ne se awade no betimi aka bo no matena asomdwem de oba mu abeka ware asem ade aboa mo no ne kurom ni so de physical ne mato nkyɛn a oni any interest bia se opoyere opokunu ana bibia ntia na mmom sa wade no amom yenu ye Kristofo sanye se ye Kristofo ye SDA fo a anko bia ni akwanya se obo wade mu baba vetu se onyame ame ye anuafo na ye Christopher no that is why ya na you be yase awade bi nkoyi no be so obam no beboa sometimes no we ko beboa be wie no ensem obetie be fa ho no na ye yase wa akra okọ so akọboa enti adafunu mo ye nyina ye Christopher no ebi kura no a na obi ba mu no na asemi na wan kankan ye na nkyere se bi a otawo yirechi ana otawo kunachi etawo but sebe ya aware be gina yi ntini ye nyina ya na ye bre ntimi sere se aware fo ye nsem basa no ya mo mianto ye bo ase when we are judging say otamachi otawo yachi untawo yachi ne ade sometimes it is not like that ye perspective any speculation and me adwene say ba kotawo yachi na we ntawo yachi madam wase
I think that's contribution.
Dr. Kakra pese me ka mpenimfo de na ho no se de na ye da kensi e ka no sometimes no ye bom pa ye ma Awurade boa ye e ma because ye Awurade nka ho a untimi nka ware asem bia I just Awurade na wa institute to marriage na e ka ho bi na mostly no de pese me ka kira wale for all life nyina ne se de ne doctor e ka kira ne se Awurade Yesu enka ho a entimi nye yi so uko ai couple me ba a lot of couples are me ko mo fie me kwa ye me kan say mo mpa ye mo munye say mo mo fie say eya na sebe eya dia ahisim bia bentin they don't have to pray together ma ye ntwen ka say asumbia ba nsan ya bompa ya bu se ka say ye twen a Yesu na odi asumbia be ba no ye say ya try say you be invite or no ya na edi mum say e bia friction bi o na still am bompa ya bum ya na edi but say do ho kra na say moko individual prayers also bompa ya say we come together to pray together na mo ne mo fra na sua dia bum anya sa eni ahoden bia say me san ka bio ni say most of times no ya na open information free couples of her omo kan o masem kire wa ya na emema ne ntankasa oba na be kan sem bebre ubisa be ma na opese wa o kan asem ma na asem a on kan kire o opese o kan ma anu nti eduru bre bia aya na ayedin ubahunu na sa ni pa kro no a on kan asem ne nkire no ka kire namfo as if so aka kire enso na on kan kire na bia one party grama no kon bia o kan asem sa ubisa e bia oba na on kan hore o si on kan di o mu kire obehu ana ka kire namfo sa information na bia nkode ma sorry from penimfo a nke bia o mbesi aboho mpaye na afei e bia mabọ wo mama o machimi afutu bi o hom dia ma o no obe hide from sorry from penimfo ni asofo no ka kire namfo nti obehu na sorry family life department o obehu na obi shekokuam na odi o masem no dia na anye yi a ne ko we ho mo tozo sa na enso so no o ma report a wose asore ne nkamase ntia na ya dia ya rahusem se asemo a onye openly enkan kire bi asore pani bi na asofo bi ba o expect se ono a nyame be review a kire no aka ana se ono a beti wasemase wa bra o nchichire mu nkire no nti sometimes ya na empani obi eno ha o take size who take size I am a catcher I catcher church members he said after all at the end of the day no ye pesa wa re kan bom do could take size no sa kan bom so kra no woni bi asio ntia no de itwase e boy ho modern na ya take size because the aba no interest our re ni ku o mbesa kan bom two kan sem bi a kire one party a you very careful because o mbesa kan bom minimum wale phobia nyema asisi no a o mka bom no so chen de o mka kire o nti o mka bom nti eno no itwase e boy church members ima part be so emotional na o kana asema kire wa o be careful say onso so ma comment bi a kire o baka ko kan kire na afi hu o mu a na asim trust eno nti mesre say first of all, ya na empanimfo here information. Na second, aya mama ye momodin yi se yebema asem na ba mpanimfo anim says ye de benam ntenche sa ubunwa asma yenka ya ubu sorry for mpanimfo friend na oma onama no sa kan say omunka masem no maame enunti ebra enne ya ye ho dure no mama after neno mama ye moye homodin yie if he say awali jaye adofonom ehu yie ye ebetimi obo ha obisa na o se ye mfa awari enko heaven but awari ebetimi ama heaven ho bia na ye nice ade a very very serious matter nti obi otaka say mere awari emfa enko heaven awari emfa nyi say sa kasa no ya won ha ye nyai awari emfa enko heaven but ebema ye timi enko heaven obi erade nka ye ho ba.
That's the pastor for your contribution. I'll be at the question about how and when do a toxic relationship repair between a parent and a child or children? How and when do a toxic relationship between a parent and a child or children? Anyone wants to have a go?
Dr. Kakra, me can say, we are young person, and we family, nese more lives in this multia. Unyame under no circumstances, obey approve separation in family. Unyame approve that. We have to continue to pray and we have to continue to find solution to the problem. Disconnect themselves. And until we have nothing to do with my dad, I have nothing to do with my mom, I have nothing to do with my husband. That's what as if say more than us. Oh, because I can't adopt for all lies in say, anyway, and until say what the Fahana ya Fafaha until say, yes, Christo baby, no, my yay, sir, you said your family come together, especially Papa no mommy. Under no circumstances, now I cut it off, say, I have nothing to do with my dad. Oh, because yet now was room under no circumstances. And now I'm going to say, oh, my cousin went ye and Timinu be you. Unyame will never do that. And I ain't yamma. And untino, a true braviness of papa you when ye said Jane, Umamia you when ye said Jane. Can who say under no circumstances, and I'll bet me a cast when you papa you. About us ye Christian. But maintain our home towards the kingdom. No, let us continue to pray and find solution. Say also for all the bars of when you went to me and yet a while. You get me a professional counsel. You get me a quay any more. Nina near the empire. You get me up say and your professional counselor. I won't say and movie a was of noon. Boom say what me up this year, Yamia Fanaso, see you won't tell. But until say, Ubeka say, me young one to maybe a idea when you solution. When see Jana say, me young one to maybe na after one pay you, one per solution you are any now wow the barrier up to her, say when you go on no, hey, Hupa, anytime Doctor de March 18 my say that's what I mean. Now say, now you cut people off. Say, me nene here, any mean to me in your view, papa, and so mean to me in your view. Very, very serious.
Memfaka cranka home. And Nema a day sa toxic relationship on a banner. See it me na yes, so no. See, I mean, if you be Baba will be in a partner, ya. We didn't fear your news. About 1 year, maybe never panaging a check. We maybe another check, man, papa. Into a dim fair denuncia, no official manini, Pesemi tunami fiasie a cobam ebobra. And I'm sababa only 2 years, none upon enya sa paycheck no. A creative big or tiny about papanin and a banning tem. Ama, say about 1 person worry. I'm a panel at tower and din. And red we see me flip panel per se in the Bacassa. Just one mammy can cry. I'm our catching about the banu in one catch with the train. It drew a warrior so I need him. And pa, it do not worry on. Papano a play just a hard game. Na ye any crum hair no. Na ye ma any crum hair no. One sena obi bisa questions how do we bridge between say obi a draw warrior na ne papa ne mame part we will play with mu. Say about Frebia draw warrior so any time. It is his prerogative. It is his or her choice. Na yen ya tawuchi. What the banning ko ya yen ya advice. Onyini na se e boa no mani tua. Oso betua yen ye boa no e mani tu. Sebe ya emre bia no ye be create good relationship. Ye emre bia na enkoda no na de o how no eba. Sometimes no yen Ghanaians no a yenyini Ghana no ye wo cultural attitude bia. We need to be able to grow from where we are coming from. Yeah, now you saw in Ghana. No, the way your parents it is different from how you may any room how many years. And it's a year to me how to marry these two cultures. Yeah, manners sometimes they have only grown from here. They know only about 15% of our culture. They know 75% of wherever they are living. And we need to learn to know how to marry yen 75-25. And they were almost 25-75. Sabaya, sa conflicts no Emma. Madam back when the papa company ma conflict here by. Mammy to come back room her. And a pepiano coach bano. One morning, or coach bano. Now branch if you're maba, no one in a year that one to prune. And a mammy could pay free so. And the could prefer so no. A branch in the book didn't be free. No one mamma ya cut to the stand and say, one can say I'm no cry who be. But any mamma, when I am mistake, no one to prune. And I'm maybe pay free so. So you're convenient that some of these things are. We need to be Christians enough, say. Yeah, ma and be saying, man, and you're toxic to the stand, say. A Christopher. Ya kasa ho enye me ba and kasa ho bi me wu amayase we say some of these things but ya Christopher we need to be Christians enough say we need any vocabulary na Christo pia de market Christ say no entimi ensi ani e mane ye ma me ne papa no ntem kwan me dem ase
But I say how and when. This needs a conscious effort on the part of the Christian. Into the two no are conflict and as a toxic carbon in terminal. One ye Christian send the other. Into what we ye Christo nino a so fa quen biaso. So bema sayon kofano aye. Utimi ye Jimmy for. If your mama me example. Me mami aye my dear to me. Eye me yasa me kasa me nkasa me mami hu bio. Me yasore penny. Na se me mami owo me. Se waye my dear na me nkasa me mami hu bio. Me ntimi mfa nche me mami. Wo gidi sasafo baba no waye me boni a metimi de ache no. Into becoming a Christian no. Odwene ho se Bible say wono mo tan ye nkura ye mompa ye ma wono. Na kampese me mami. Eno nti eba mi musa no I just pick up the phone. Me frɛ me mami say ma we nyafe ni ebeka bia me ye oba me pa o chew de asie bia no mane ntwam me su na me mami su that's it. Nti esese wo a wo ye Kristo ni mapa no utu anamo bebre ba bia ma me mfa se de da kense kan asem yi. Nti me tu anamo na me gya ya asem yi mu na me papa pese me betena na nche de me paycheck ma no me nso manyini a me kɔbɔ me bra Bible say ma muntie ma wo fo asem awurade mu. Inti we no nya urade mu a me nkɔ so nware ma ware nyame bɛhwɛ me. Me bɔ mmɔden bia still sɛ me ne me papa ndɛm bɛyɛ kama. Sɛ baba se wonyɛ mu a yɛmmɔ mpa yɛ ma no. Ma me nya time fa ma no. But adɔfo no sɛ de yɛka no sei no ɛnya de a ɛmmerɛ. Gye sɛ woyɛ Kristo nneɛma pa na woyɛ wadwene sɛ kwan biara so wopɛ sɛ ayɔnkofa no ɛka bom. Ɛbɛtumi ayɛ saa. Sɛ yɛ maame a wɔn nso so bɔ mmɔden biara sɛ deɛ wo ba no de ayɛ wo papa a bɔ mmɔden biara sɛ deɛ wo ba no de ayɛ wo no wode bɛkyɛ no. Na Kristofoɔ fie deɛ sɛ suba wei nsɛ sɛ tena hɔ. Meda mo ase.
Okay. I'm the kakra. I'm say question or between parents and so between children. Sometimes we have issues between the father and the mother and the daughter, or the father and the son, or the mother and the daughter, the mother and the son. And the son someone alluded to it earlier. One of the issues, cultural sort of perspective, because you I mean, me in particular, my wife is West Indian, so I've got a very sort of a extra way to go. If you say, not only is she not used to the Ghanaian way of doing things, even though she knows quite a lot about Ghanaian culture, but she's not a Ghanaian. And to be they've got parts, African culture in them, plus the West Indian. So I had to adjust. So if the current into Tiana, this is Tim and American my relationship, it would have lasted 23 years. Yeah, we've worked together. So when it comes to toxic relationship between either the father and son, the key is about communication. Sitting down and talking about the issues. Some of the families, they don't have even family meeting. Bama sorry, I'm quite 24/7 there's no time for the family to sit down and discuss problems affect and also impact you. In fact, it's about acknowledging what the issue is. A toxic relationship. How do we go about it? Say between the same Matthew 18 example, talk about it. If they're not listening, get somebody else who they respect to come in. To look at the issues. Get more support to be able to deal with the issue. Eventually, if it doesn't resolve, because it's not all toxic relationship can be repaired. If it doesn't resolve, the Bible tells us as much as it depends on you, live peaceably with mankind. It could be even with a church member, this toxic relation with the church member. Meaning will be as a back. Nowadays, a krata senti, or the now, Sikanaba, now what take no the 1 pound money per crown, no the yen. One who will be a coat adding a toy, sweat. Akoye Juma. Abagu account to my family, then acquire source of contention within the church, between church members. Toxic relationship. So you have to acknowledge it and you have to deal with it. And it's not all relationships that can be repaired. Some can be repaired when you seek professional help or when you get others involved and talk about the issues. And TM said, is also on that. Obviously, it's a scenario, but I'm not going to mention names. It says in a scenario where parents and advisors and friends do not approve of a young adult's partner because they are both pulling away, yet the two are stuck together. what should everyone involved do? I'm saying it's been answered that the last person who did a contribution, I can't remember the name of the person, but you know, we can support our children to make wise decisions. When they are getting married or they are preparing to get married, when they're dating, when they are courting, as parents, as responsible Christians, our obligation is to guide them and to pray for them and to trust that they will take the guidance that we've given them. But we also need to bear in mind that Nyankopon boy, you know, while more say the robots, the same way that our children are not robots, they have the power of choice God has given to every human being. And it's all guiding, now advising. Now at the end of the day, this is what they want to do now. As parents and as Christians, we need to be supportive of that decision. If you look at the story of the prodigal son, it's a good example. The father knew that this was exactly what was going to happen, but the father had to honor the request. At the end of the day, there was a positive outcome of that. Until young vampire, young supportive, now young guide you spiritually in making that decision. But when you have good relationship with them from the beginning, your children will listen to good counsel. But so when you need good relationship, you have to be because I've worked with young people for a number of years, and this is a common thing, particularly within the Ghanaian community. Let me add to it. That's how I will go to the next question and our contribution.
Contribution on the whole subject now. Me feel said some I can say some bar na ye blame each other no. Wo quotation been admire na one of my favorite quotations about bitterness. You put it away. Me feel says and some bar say ye between mame and a bear manukunu. A fan cry any parents me feel say sansam ni sia I say ye nyame sin chen yenia de ya ho odene e na eka ye ma instrunsam na yesua a chire ye mu ekwan nyame example ode amaye no. Most of the time situations be ba it doesn't matter because in some ni bi wo ho a woni it becomes so personalized to say ya tu nyame nhihye ne chiro na wode ma yense situation a ye bedrum no enye te se kanea na nhine na mfa yenko the right way enti yenyina our platform so as ma meka ene de ye ne say in fact my first time I come to that say efficiency no. Say put all bitterness, near my hatred near in a way, no. Missing tia dear way were barbroom, none in Canada. I was saying, yeah, soon so. Because I would not bitterness in my doesn't matter. Say, Sebio, yes, you could see free through bar, yenty. Because you're willing, say, oh, may I yem say, Nukuna yem say, because of Yesu. I can't say men serve and not one another. I had to say men family home for dear. Me feel says sansem ye yesia na de ye adwuma a bema conflict no annual brasi bebre, but we are not willing. We be taking a stand. Say me nye muda. And until now my ye breno. Say me ye bitterness say oh in tamuna na be ya we. But how long and now be hold on to it, and it's eating you alive. So bitterness no bet me from mama, why you honest with yourself. So me my ye. Sanya man we you nipa fan, including myself, yam per se bed yatum say, dear my yen and yet. But say ye masan, some we trust them yet trauma for a reason. Say about 2 aquanchra, to nyame mantemwa, emwa ye nen guide. See amana yes idea. Ye be kwa kosi saving second coming no by you. Nti ye minuanom adofo ye mma moma ye mfa nyame asem ni nya adwuma. When we go to situation mono, let's claim these words, these promises, these examples of nyame dia maye. Said ye be ya bone ne de ye kɔ baabi ye nye no ebetimi aboa yen na ye choose kwan na e de be fa straight and narrow no so a ebeboa enyame asem. Nti kakra me wo kasa abre no. Dr. Mpacha wo ho ana wasna te kokwadwo. Pastor Tambe ne ebepon.
No dia pa honpo.
Ene me de me ja ha ma menim so wasna te kwa. Eja sia ma wo ko.
To say doctor de ye yo ha abo ekobo 8 no. Oye and de to say de we all night. Ekobo 2 o'clock e wo ho.
Nti se wo kasa ye ene kana mpesa ye danase na ka ye de ba wiye.
Sure.
Because ade asa wo no ho ade asa ye nso so ha kakra.
Right. Me fa sa kwanya so our come ni for bebre o la yeso ne o mabeka ye ho. Ye sister Victoria Banye, sister Agatha Sakodie, and Nua Collins Boating, and Guinness Boating, or you know, a journey from Canada. And brother Bill, Nua Portia Ameya, Matilda Nati Ebenezer, sister Dorothy, a journey from New Mexico, Radi Shram Sabato Ebenezer, Sabato de Nena, Radin Shrao. Next time next week is also your war young talkers here from Friday and until Sramaya Maka Yahu, I mean said a rade ebishra in said ye Nadoya Kessian Chien.
You also for me feel say what to call nti e beda na se aja siama ne maame siama mon fa ya se dama wa kontani unua be ma se ye da na se ye da wonne ne yire nso so ase se wa ma na kwan wan ja no ama na be kasa a kire ye